What's up, guys? How's it going? My name is MikeTheTech, and today we're going to learn how to make an endless runner or rage game. So we're going to go ahead and make a new project. And we are in creator.gamesalad.com. This is the new web version of GameSalad. You will need an account to use this. And we're going to go ahead and name our project Rage Runner. And I'm going to put YT for YouTube. Alright, that way we can identify it from all the other projects. Now we want to create an actor for our Rage Runner, and that is going to be the player. Now let's go ahead and make him orange, which we can do in the attribute section on the right hand side. And now he's an orange box. And let's make it 60 by 60 in width and height. This is going to be kind of a clone of the Impossible game, and then I'll let you guys kind of add your own changes to it and choose graphics you want to use and things like that. So let's go ahead and place this in the game. So we've placed our player in the game. If we hit play, nothing will happen, but our player now shows up. So we're going to go ahead and add some fake gravity to this player. So let's go ahead and choose a behavior called accelerate. Now accelerate is going to make the player fall or move towards a certain direction, increasing in speed as he falls, which is kind of how it happens in real life. So we're going to go ahead and put 270 degrees to make the player fall downwards, and let's put it at a rate of 800. And we want this relative to the scene because our player is going to be spinning and bouncing on things, and we don't want him to just fly off of the screen. So let's go ahead and press play and see how this changes his behavior. Now he kind of falls. Nice. So now we want to add a floor. So let's go ahead and hit the plus sign, and we're going to call this the floor. And let's place this in our scene as well. I'll go ahead and make it kind of thin and wide. And we want our player to collide with the floor. So I'm going to add a behavior called collide and click on the floor. That way it will collide anytime it touches the floor. Now we aren't done yet because when we press play, our floor is actually going to bounce away when we land on it, which isn't obviously what we want it to do. So what we're going to need to do is go over to our floor and make that not movable. So in our attributes, we're going to scroll down to physics, and we're going to change bounciness to 0. And for our player, we're going to do the same. We're going to go down to physics and change our bounciness to 0. And we're also going to go into our floor and change physics for movable off. And when we press play, our player will land on the floor. Now the reason we change bounciness to 0 is because if we leave it at 1 and we hit play, we'll never actually land. The player just kind of bounces, and that's not the method of gameplay we're going to be using. Though if you wanted to, you could have a game like this where the player is constantly bouncing. That'd be kind of interesting. But in our case, we don't, so I'm going to put this at 0. We can also have a little fun with it and change this to 0.2, and you'll have a slight little bounce when you hit the ground, and it's kind of nice and realistic, but we'll just set this to 0 for now. Alright, so now we need to add some movement controls. So we're going to make it so that when you press space, you can jump. So let's go ahead and hit the add rule button. And we're going to check for a keyboard key and choose the space key. And you're not going to type in space here, you're actually just going to hit the space bar and it's going to work for you. And in the then section, we want to change an attribute. Now, not constrain attribute, we need to change attribute, which is a non-persistent action. And the attribute we're going to change is to yourself, because it's the player, your own motion, linear velocity, and Y, because we're jumping up and down, not left and right. And we're going to set that to 500 for now. And now if we hit play, our player lands on the floor, and when we hit space, we're able to jump. But if we hit space multiple times, we're actually able to jump in mid-air, just like in Flappy Bird, and we don't want that. So what we're going to have to do is add a second condition to this rule that says not only is it when we press space, but also when we're colliding with the floor. So I'm going to go to event and say when we overlap or collide with the floor. So now when I hit play, I can press space and I can jump. I can press space and keep on pressing space, and he will not jump unless he's touching the floor. So that works. Now we need to make our player move forward at a constant rate. So we're going to go ahead and use constrain attribute, and we're not going to put it inside of a rule. We're actually going to put it outside of a rule down here. So I'm going to go to constrain attribute and drag this down here. And the attribute we want to constrain is our self, motion, linear velocity, and this time, since we're moving forward, we're going to use the X, the horizontal axis. And we're going to set that to 300. And if we hit play, you can see that now we're moving forward and we can jump moving forward. Perfect. And by using constrain attribute, it's going to keep us moving at that speed, even if there's friction and things trying to keep us from moving at that speed, so that we can time things, for example, if we have music in the game. Excuse me. So, unfortunately, when we hit play, we just kind of go off of the screen. We just keep on going, and our level's pretty boring in that sense. So we're going to have to actually expand our level. So let's go to initial scene. Go to our scene inspector and change its width to something very, very long. So something like 6,000. So now we can actually scroll through a really long level and design things as we see fit. To make sure that we're doing this, let's go ahead and add some more platforms to our level. Now, we're not going to know if this works or not because we don't know how fast we're going, how far we're going. We're going to have to move these as we play test our level just to make sure that we get the timing right. But I'm just placing these in so that we can actually visualize the movement as we're going through our scene. And you'll see what I mean in a moment, but we can't quite get to that area yet. So what we're going to do is go into our player and set up some camera controls. So if we go to our behaviors and choose control camera and drag that into our player just outside of a rule, then the camera is going to follow that player. Unfortunately, if we press play, we're not quite done yet because it won't actually follow the player until he reaches the very edge of the screen, which just kind of makes the point of playing the game a little bit null and void. So let's go ahead and go into our scene and adjust the camera bounds so that he only moves when you're right at the center of the screen. Right about here. And switch it back and hit play. And now the camera will start moving when you're in the center of the screen, and you can kind of time your jumps a little bit better. Alright, great. So now let's get into some of the more advanced stuff. I'm going to give you time at the end of this to, well, I'm not going to give you time, it's YouTube, you can take all the time you want. But after this, try making a level that that is complete, like it's from start to finish. Make it kind of difficult, maybe play a couple levels of the impossible game and figure out what works and what makes some interesting obstacles. And then we're going to come in and add some more obstacles, as well as ways to make the player lose and ways to make the player win. So I'm going to stop this recording here, and then I'll make another one to add some of the more advanced features.